West a week before, a week and a half before, it makes you go crazy. Like, how can that happen? How can one day they can be incredible on the road and then they tank it against Memphis? They tank it against Dallas. It's maddening.
Well, I think it's the nature of the NBA. I don't think the Pelicans are alone in that regard. I just think they're extremely inconsistent with their effort, frankly. I don't know any other way to describe it. Last night, they were all into it. Defensively, they were into it. They were shooting extremely well from the field. I mean, they kind of rise to the level of their opposition and sometimes fall to the level of the opposition. And that's, to me, the sign of a team that still doesn't have quite the leadership it needs on the court or off the court. And I use that phrase all the time with the Sean Payton line. There are a lot of dirty hands. I think some of the struggles the Pelicans have had, it's easy to scapegoat the head coach, the general manager, the two star players. I think all of them have to bear some responsibility in why this team has been as inconsistent as it has. But maybe they found their niche right now, and they are turning it around and kind of getting it together. There's still plenty of time to put this thing together in the second half. I was really impressed last night, Larry. I really was. I didn't think once Boston came back and got the lead, I didn't think they would recover.
You just figured, it was going to be over.
Just,
you're like, oh, they almost had him.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen that movie before, and they just showed, I think, the mental toughness to not yield, and that's difficult to do. I mean, much like the Saints did up in Minnesota, when Minnesota took the lead again on them, it would have been easy to kind of fold your tent, and they didn't. So, I think it's very encouraging, but again, everybody, I think with the Pelicans, everybody tempers their enthusiasm because they've been down this road before. And this is now a 3-game winning streak, and I think that matches the longest of the season. I think they've done it a couple times before. Let's see if they can continue it. They got a game tonight against Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how they rebound with that one. And look, we'll be talking plenty about that in the 11 o'clock hour. Again, we'll have Will Guillory on, our Pelicans beat writer of NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, make his weekly what happened. I do think that you get to kind of the Wednesday after the season's over, and that's when people start wanting to look ahead, what could be for next year. So we're going to do a little bit of that. We'll do that with Herbie Teope starting around 10:30, and then again you'll hear from Thomas Morstead and Will Lutz from Tuesday's locker room session as well. And also, look, we'll go through some of the free agents. I think you've got a couple of key unrestricted free agents, but also the restricted free agents that the Saints have on their roster, I think are going to be pretty interesting to see what happens to those guys. Guys, say, like Willie Snead. Or do you just deal and test if they feel like it's a good enough deal or they want to try to go somewhere else? Because I think, Jeff, you would agree with me. They could certainly use another corner. They could certainly use some more stability at wide receiver outside of Michael Thomas and outside of Ted Ginn. So I think those are positions that you're going to have to look at as far as restricted free agents are concerned.
I think Sean Payton at one point probably during the game on Sunday when I counted this, Larry, watching a replay, I think Case Keenum had 9 seconds to throw a pass. 9. That'd be a record. And I bet in the back of his mind at some point he was like, you know what, I'm not putting up with this again. I'm going out and getting a pass rusher, whether it's free agency, the draft, or whatever. Now, they only rushed 3 on that play, and Sheldon Rankins got double-teamed. And
they dropped Cam Jordan into coverage.
Right. I don't know about that.
I hate that.
I
hate to see that. Why? He's the best guy, one of the best in the league. Never do that.
And he was dominating his man often. He was getting in there even when he wasn't getting the sack. But one time, I don't know if you saw, they split Cam Jordan out into the slot, and he was defending. It just shows how athletic Cam is. But I'd also wonder about the wisdom of taking by far your best pass rusher. I mean, I'm sure Minnesota was like, okay, well, we don't mind him defending Kyle Rudolph out here in the slot. But I think that has to be a top priority, because I think if you get another elite pass rusher, and I know those guys are hard to find, so it's easier said than done, I think this defense could go to another level. The way they play, they put so much pressure on their DBs, and watching the game again, they did let them play. I know a lot of people are saying that they called it too tight, and they cite the pass interference calls early. They kind of set the tone. But after that, you watch the game again. I mean, both sides were getting away with a lot of stuff downfield. They could have called that pick play on Mike Thomas that knocked out Zendejo. They picked the flag up. I thought that was the right call. I really thought the game was pretty well officiated overall, and they did let them do a lot of hand fighting, because that's the way the Saints play, and you can't call it all the time. So, and I think they've got to get a tight end. If they ever get an elite tight end with this group right now, they're going to be tough.
You know, people are wondering if there's going to be a Saints Jimmy Graham reunion. You know that's on people's minds.
I get asked it all the time. I'm sure you do.
Yes.
I don't think there's any doubt that would be a good fit, but I don't know. I think there's some hard feelings maybe still involved.
I would think that as well.
Yeah, and he's going to cost some money, don't you think?
Well,
he had a big year.
In his mind, he might cost some money.
Right, but even more than the other tight ends on the market. When you look at who's out there, he's probably going to command the biggest contract, I would think, of the free agent tight ends.
I think Tyler Eifert's a free agent from the
But
Bengals.
I mean, Jimmy Graham will be more than him, don't you think?
I don't know.
I don't know how many. Jimmy Graham caught a lot of touchdown passes this year. I know that. They finally started using him in the red zone. Look, this organization has brought back guys routinely. Happens all the time. I don't know how much of a bridge got burned, if at all, but I wouldn't close the door on that at all. I know Drew Brees still likes Jimmy Graham, and that carries a lot of weight in that locker room.
Well, I think the fact that they brought back Jari Evans in the fashion that they did, I'm not going to completely close the door on anyone at all. But would I be surprised if Jimmy came back? Yeah, because I do think there are some bitter feelings. So, look, why don't we take a break right here on the show? When we get back, we'll go through some of the free agents, some of the holes. If you want to get involved in conversation, feel free. 504-260-1280 is the number to get involved. And we'll be talking heavy Saints, NFL in the first hour. Hour number 2, we'll switch gears, talk a lot of Pelicans. Jeff, also want to bring up in hour number 2 just kind of the college basketball scene. Look, we're shifting gears. College basketball scene. Look, LSU had a golden opportunity to pick up a big win last night and lost by 1. And that loss is going to hurt because now they're starting to drift a little.
I thought you were going to bring up Louisville beating Notre Dame in overtime on the road.
Had no idea that Louisville even still had a basketball team.
Or Kentucky losing to South Carolina. I'll freely talk about both those things because that was a great night in college basketball.
Neither one of those apply to me, so no.
Okay.
How'd the Rummel Raiders do last night? Are they good in basketball?
I don't know.
You need to look it up. Let's go. I wonder if Jamar Chase is playing basketball and dunking on people. I don't even know if he plays basketball. They could use him. I'm sure he could sky and dunk on some people. But anywho, come on back here. We'll talk Saints free agents, potential free agents. So come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app for Duncan Holder.
Your shot at $1,000 now. Text the keyword LOCK to 200-200.
Yeah,
you'll get a text confirming entry plus iHeartRadio info. Standard data and message rates apply. That's LOCK to 200-200. Cold, freezing, hard cash.
Money.
In your hot little
the fact that we fought the
With
ice.
$1,000 in your hand. Be listening every hour, weekdays from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m.
So I guess he's
on
listening.
Sports 1280.
Wake up to the power of the dollar at Taco Bell, where you can get the new $1 breakfast.
Hey, we got a Rodney in South Carolina.
Layers of fluffy eggs and melty cheese.
Uh-oh, maybe he's calling about beating
There are
Kentucky.
3 sides to the pyramid on the dollar bill. Is the Bell Illuminati behind
Rodney
this?
in South
Maybe
Carolina.
the $1
Yeah, I was having trouble understanding what the hell he was saying, but I thought I heard Kentucky and Jeffrey, so.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Y'all can gloat. Y'all can do a little.
No, he's probably
Gamecock party.
probably a Kentucky fan who wants to bring up the Louisville loss to Kentucky, which would be probably difficult for me to
Do not forget
defend.
to buy lentils or the lentil soup you're making.
All right, I got everybody but Morstead, and I'm doing Morstead right now.
That's all
Our
good.
bundle home
We'll
and auto.
just-
She appreciates the
We're
extra
not doing any
savings,
Pelicans
even though
till
you kept
11, and
using
then
the
we
word
could do
apropos
the clips
incorrectly.
after
But the
Herbie
main thing
next
is
segment,
You
so.
son of a...
What does that mean?
I'm sitting here trying to get it all done all fast, and now you don't want to use it?
Well, of course I want to use it. I'm just saying you don't need to stress.
Situations.
I always stress. That's what I do.
Because it's a deal that
It's my job, damn it.
gets a small fry and drink, all for just $4. But now the 4 for $4 has more variety than ever with 8 sandwich choices.
I'm loyal to the double stack.
I'm Junior Bacon Cheeseburger through and through.
I pledge myself to the crispy chicken sandwich.
I'm loyal to my hunger.
Whether you're loyal to one sandwich or all 8, the Wendy's 4 for $4 has a sandwich for you. So try them all and pick your favorite. Now that's
more
totally different.
Participating Wendy's for a limited time, offer not valid in Alaska and Hawaii.
Another monster performance from Anthony Davis carries the Pelicans to a 116-113 overtime win against the Celtics in Boston. Davis explodes for 45 points, 16 boards as New Orleans picked up their third straight win.
I'm just trying to carry the team. We're just having fun, honestly. There's nothing more to it.
Last night's effort follows a 48-point performance against the Knicks on Martin Luther King Day. A sad night in Boston. Word came out about the passing of NBA Hall of Famer and Celtics legend JoJo White Tuesday at the age of 71 from cancer. Elsewhere in the association, Magic stunned the T-Wolves 108-102. Nuggets dipped the Mavs 105-102. Trailblazers 118-111 winners over the Suns. The Jacksonville Jaguars get set to play the Patriots on Sunday, the AFC Championship game.
I didn't realize he had
Super
28 home runs. I
running back
thought he was like
Leonard Fournette is
not even good
reported
anymore.
okay following a minor car crash Tuesday in Florida. And Washington State University is mourning the death of quarterback Tyler Helinski.
I'm excited
He was
about
found
that.
dead Tuesday.
All right, 10 seconds.
Apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Back in the mix.
That's
Yep.
sports.
Spend $50 on Evan Longoria. Go.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Welcome back. Wobble Wobble Wednesday here on Dunc and Holder. Let's hit the phone lines, 504-260-1280. Rodney in South Carolina. Rodney, thanks for calling the show. Are you calling because you and Jeff are going to have like this Kentucky hate party that South Carolina beat Kentucky? Is that why you're calling in?
No, the reason I'm calling, I would like to point out that if Marcus Williams had taken Stephon Diggs' legs out from underneath him, in other words, cartwheeled him, it might have killed Stephon Diggs. I think it was charitable on a subconscious level for Marcus Williams to avoid doing that. As unlikely as that sounds, with his momentum, the only thing he could have done with Marcus Williams being as high up in the air as he was to take his legs out. And it might have really hurt him seriously.
Hey, Rodney, appreciate the phone call, appreciate the thoughts. Look,
everybody's got an opinion.
And we don't know because we don't know subconsciously what Marcus Williams was thinking. Could that be in the back of your head? Look, this is going to be so far removed from professional football, but I'll just put it in my everyday life. I'm playing tennis, and I've got an overhead, and there's a guy standing right in the net. Do I want to drill him in the face with the ball? No. Can I? Yes. And sometimes you miss. Could that be something? I don't know, but it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. It's just the human nature of I don't want to totally take out this guy and have him land on his neck and he's carted off and broken and majorly injured. But I don't know. But that's I agree with you, Jeff, that people are going to be theorizing about this forever. And the play lends itself to theorize about things forever.
I don't think that was the case. I think he got there too soon, didn't want to interfere, and then just kind of thought the receiver was going to be drifting more, and he went to a spot to try and hit him, thought he was going to drift more to the sideline, and he was going to take his legs out from under him. I think he thought exactly what he probably was trained to do. He just whiffed. I mean, whiff 6. It was brutal to watch, and I can understand why people are perplexed by it, because we're all sitting there knowing, hey, you just stand there and tackle him and the game's over. But in the heat of the moment with the pressure on, and I think, to be honest with you, the shockingness that he was going to catch the ball. I mean, I think we were all shocked because of the 2 plays before that. And I tell you, watching the replay again, Larry, I do think there's something that happened, though, in the course of that last sequence of events that needs to be discussed, and that was the Saints' timeout right before the play before the play. That was, I think, the second down play. The Saints call a timeout, and they kind of changed their defense there. They were playing this kind of front that was 4, if you remember what they did, they have 4 down linemen, and then they have 5 across the field on the second level, and then the 2 deep safeties kind of in a cover 2 deep. And then the play before that, after the timeout, they changed it up. And the linebacker, Craig Robertson, and I think Von Bell, or I'm probably mistaken on Von Bell, but there's another player that were kind of roaming the field in the middle. They changed up their responsibilities there, and the Saints came after Case Keenum. Rankins does a stunt with Cam Jordan, gets a hit, forces a quick incompletion. And I don't know if during that timeout, Sean Payton weighed in and said, look, this is the way I want to play the defense, thinking back to that Tampa Bay game where they gave up that ball down the sidelines, and he didn't want to see that again. I'm not saying he did, but the defense changed a little bit there. Then they kind of went back to this same scheme again on the big play. But really, as much at fault as Marcus Williams, Ken Crawley did not need to be sucked up underneath on that. I know what he was doing. He was thinking, I don't want this guy to get the ball in front of me. I think it was Jarius Wright. He didn't want him to catch the ball, but he would have been about the 45. They still would have been way out of field goal range. But him getting sucked up under the underneath route allowed the ball to get over his head and put Marcus Williams in this kind of do-or-die position.
Got Cordell.
I still think people are going to be going in circles watching
overanalyzing.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right.
Yeah, let's take one phone call, and then we'll take a break right here on the show. Herbie Teope's coming up here in a couple minutes. Of course, covers the Saints with us, NOLA.com and Times-Picayune. But let's head up to Minnesota and talk with Cordell. Hey, Cordell. Thanks for calling Dunc and Holder. How you hanging after a couple days?
Hey, man, I'm hanging in there, man. It's getting a little warmer today. It's 16 degrees right now, baby.
Well, that's about as cold as it is here, so we're all in the same boat.
Hey, I was just thinking about that when the show first came on and you were talking about the weather. I'm like, man, I got a 2-year plan to move back home. I don't want to be coming back home to that, you know?
Cordell, don't worry. 9 months out of the year, you could still wear easily flip-flops and shorts. And I would say 10 months out of the year, so you're good. You keep your 2-year plan. You're good.
I can't wait anyway. Hey, guys, look, this is what I wanted to say. First of all, I'm sick and tired of seeing on social media all of these conspiracy theories about Marcus Williams talking about the man stole the team out for money and all this other stuff. People just knock it off. I hope all of our fans could hear me say this. Knock it off, guys. Knock it off. This guy would not. That is a good young man. He made a mistake. If you want to blame anybody, blame Dennis Allen for calling that bad defense. You know, we should have had more people back, you know, in coverage, you know. And then my next part is a question. And I think you guys are probably going to touch on this already. I was just wondering if there was any defensive ends or linebackers that'll be free agents this year that you think the Saints should or could go after during free agency. And I'll let you guys talk.
All right, Cordell, appreciate the phone call. Yeah, we've gotten referenced about this shady play, quote unquote, but that people are talking about, or that someone's on the take because of the play. I will come out and say, whoever's talking about that are complete buffoons. It's the most absurd thing I've ever heard of in my life. And to perpetuate that thought is ignorant and moronic. I'm just going to leave it at that. I know it's talked about in town. I know it's been talked about for the last couple of days. I got bent about it when someone brought it up yesterday. And I'll just say this. There are people in town who are perpetuating this complete pile of garbage. Come up with a better thought process than something without any sort of evidence and just throwing it out there. And honestly, if Jeff did that, if I did that, if we wrote that and we were serious about it, we'd probably end up getting sued because we had no basis for it. None. So, Jeff, I've been bent about that theory for days now.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, it's ignorant and just a totally misguided, silly, not even worth really discussing. I know we have to some degree because we're in the business where the narrative's out there, but it's just such a silly take on it that I don't even think it. I don't think it bears discussion.
No,
I don't want to honor something so stupid to discuss it.
Right. I just want to put it out there on the record. We can move on. Let's get the break right here on the show. Let's talk with Herbie Teope coming up here next. Talk about who he talked with in the locker room yesterday, his thoughts moving forward, thoughts looking back. We'll do that coming up next here. Herbie Teope on Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app from Dunc and Holder.
Your forecast on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
People who perpetuate
this report is brought to you by Boomtown
Good.
Casino.
I'm glad someone brought
Happy
it up.
Wednesday from the Fox 8 Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. Dangerous icy road conditions will continue through much of the day, and we'll see temperatures only climbing above the freezing mark briefly this afternoon. Anything that does manage to melt will refreeze as the sun sets tonight, and hard freeze conditions are expected on both sides of the lake, with temperatures dropping into the teens on the North Shore and mid-20s on the South Shore. We'll see dangerous icy road conditions again for your Thursday morning. From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Shelby Latino. Have a great day.
I spent my birthday night listening to Bobby Hebert about. I mean, that's what I did. The night of me and my son's birthday. That's what I did. I need to get a better life. Oh, we're having a party Friday night.
Shot in her car at
Oh,
approximately 9 p.m.
What y'all doing?
It's at the house, which is family.
Anyone with information on
he's
Myesha
three.
McDaniel's murder is urged
Like,
to speak up and call Crime
all the little
Stoppers
friends he
at
has,
822-1111,
he's going to be leaving
or
them and going
download
to
our
another
free
school
Tip
next year.
Submit
So I'm
app.
like, once he gets
You
to
remain
like the
anonymous
school
and
he'll
can
be in
earn
for
a
like
$2,500 cash
10 years.
reward.
Right.
I'll
Take a stand.
throw like a
Speak
big
up.
Yeah, right,
Crime
right.
Stoppers.
With inviting all the
I'm
kids.
Dave Marley.
Like, Brady,
So
like,
he's
invite-
right
Are
after
you taking Viagra?
Christmas, so
Now,
It's
you
like
can get
me.
Sildenafil,
Yeah, he gets-
the
That's how I've
active
been all
ingredient
my
in
life.
Viagra,
So do you
generic
get like
20 milligrams
downgraded
for
gifts
$2
because
per
it's
tablet.
been such
That's
a
savings
recent
of $50 per
gift
dose.
getting time?
Marley Drug is a
well,
North
yeah, well,
Carolina
he doesn't get
pharmacy
like
delivering generic
15 gifts,
sildenafil to your door.
He's
For
getting
more
stuff you'll
information
like.
on
Yeah,
sildenafil,
Angela's
go
birthday
to
was like
marleygenerics.com
December
or
22nd. I always
call
thought
us
that
at
stunk too.
Oh, my sister.
Right around Christmas.
Yeah. Dude,
That's
oh my
800
God, stun gun Herbie. We're in commercial now.
Have you ever worked at a place where they didn't want you talking about your salary? Actually, have you ever worked anywhere where they did? Unlikely. But don't you have a right to know? If only there were a simple solution. Well, now there is.
How we find jobs has changed. On Indeed.com, our company reviews give you the inside track on thousands of companies.
So,
you can
hi
research
Dave, hurry.
salaries,
Herbie's
benefits,
wondering
company
if
cultures, and more,
you've like
all on
lost your
Indeed.com.
fingers
Search for
you know.
greatness. Search Indeed, the world's
Panic.
#1 job
Pro
site.
Bowl, you're
Indeed.
not going, right?
All right, we got the Herbster. Apparently, he's very impatient.
Yes. I'm surprised you didn't text me like at 10:26.
Kim Kardashian and Kanye.
I'm waiting.
I know. He's like, did Dave forget my number? He said, I just texted Larry.
Healthy, beautiful baby girl.
Well, you know, actually, I was busy scouring the databases to find something for Herbs.
Oh,
Their
there
dreams
you
come
go.
true
Now
with
we
the
can make him
greatest
feel
gift
guilty.
One could two other children.
All I gotta say is, God bless the internet.
Sitting on
If you need something, it's usually out there.
the pop songs charts, the last song to post its first week at number
Good and
1
bad,
on both,
right?
and the same week was
Absolutely.
Can't Stop the Feeling in June 2016.
OJ like.
Jay-Z's 444 tour, now the highest-grossing solo trek despite low ticket sales. The tour has brought in nearly $50 million across 32 shows, beating out Jay-Z's Magna Carta tour by 21%. Tickets for it were reportedly priced as low as $6 on StubHub, so more fans could attend the shows at an affordable price, which resulted in a gross of 7 figures per night.
We all live in a yellow submarine.
The Beatles' animated film Yellow Submarine is headed back to theaters for the 50th anniversary of the film's original release. The announcement only mentioned the UK and Ireland for a July 8th showing and a glorious surround sound. The film was originally released on July 18th, 1968.
10 seconds.
London's Piccadilly Circus the night before
Yeah,
with
that was
all
a
four
lose. That was not a
Beatles
good
in
loss.
attendance. That's entertainment. Jennifer Bolsoni, NBC News Radio.
Whether you bless those boys or take flight, we're talking your teams. Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Herbie Teope, this is what Dave was doing for you when you were in a panic that we didn't call you. He found a Wobble Wobble Wednesday version of Game of Thrones just for you, my friend. Just for you.
Hey, we're in Winterfell-like conditions out here in New Orleans, right? So that's perfect.
Let me tell you, I went to an unnamed grocery store a couple days ago and saw Game of Thrones wine with the, oh gosh, what is it? I'm blanking on the Ice King, the Snow King, the whatever. The main evil dude, the main
King,
White
man.
Walker.
Get with it, the Night King.
The Night King, yeah. His face is on the cover of the wine bottle, dude. I'm surprised you didn't go, and it's on our side of the river, Herbie. You need to go and, swipe it up.
Well, I'm debating if I want to go outside, first of all, so we'll wait on that one.
Well, look at this. For once in our lives, Jeff and I, we can say that we're tougher than Herbie Teope. This will be the last time we ever
I don't know about
say
that.
it.
I would never go there.
I was driving in that mess last night, so it's all good.
Oh, gosh. Well, Herbie, I appreciate you jumping on the show. And you were in the locker room yesterday, just kind of from guys you were talking to, just kind of the overall sentiment of what they were saying. I know you also kind of had caught up with some guys, got some injury tidbits as well. So just kind of your overall thoughts of the reaction from the players and then Sean Payton after the season's over.
Well, I think it's still surreal, and you guys were in the locker room Sunday, and that environment in the locker room Sunday is pretty much has carried over 2 days later. A lot of the players were still in shock at what had happened Sunday. Ron Armstead probably captured it best when he was saying, simply put, I'm still in shock. And I think even we reporters are still kind of in shock of what happened. But, they sooner or later, and Armstead basically said the same thing, they have to shift focus now to getting ready for the 2018 season. Yes, the season ended in a disappointing fashion, and Sean Payton mentioned the finality of it yesterday during his post-game press conference, but not post-game, I'm sorry, end-of-season conference, news conference, but they do have to start shifting focus to 2018, as much as they don't want to, and I know as much as Saints fans don't want them to, but they have to, because now you've got the Senior Bowl coming up. We're now in draft season, so to speak, because everything that you built on in 2017, now you got to add more pieces to it in 2018, and that's where the focus needs to be. You can use what happened Sunday as fuel and motivation throughout the offseason to get back to this point in the upcoming season, but you can't dwell on it too much. I think that's the message that a lot of the players got.
Herbie, did you get the same kind of message from the players that I got yesterday, rallying around Marcus Williams and showing support for him? And also, I think it speaks volumes about the respect that he's already engendered as a rookie, that so many players have come out and spoken on his behalf in support of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Armstead even said he talked to him twice on Sunday. He talked to him on the plane, and he talked to him again yesterday, on Tuesday. But the key thing here is the Saints aren't in position to win that game if not for Marcus Williams' interception off of Case Keenum. And then Williams had a phenomenal rookie season. I think if Marshawn Lattimore is not in New Orleans, all our penning and writing and everything is on Marcus Williams, because that's how good he was. Second on the team in interceptions, third overall in defensive snaps. The guy was a stud this year. So he played a large role in the success of the Saints season, 11-5, NFC South Division title. And I think a lot of the players understand that. Matter of fact, I know they understand that they're not at this point right now without Marcus Williams.
Herbie Teope covers the Saints for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. And honestly, Herbie, I think you've got to give the general public and fans a lot of credit for understanding that. It seems to me, just from people I talk to, I know people are still upset about the play, and they forever will be, but I do think that people understand that Marcus Williams was a good player this year, and he's not going anywhere. He's going to be the free safety, let's see. For at least the next 3 years, he's under contract for the next 3 years, and he's had a good season. Is that kind of the sense you feel just kind of from the public, their perception of this kid?
Yeah, absolutely, Larry, because even when you look at social media, a lot of high-profile athletes, even some former NFL executives, reached out to him through Twitter. Amy Trask, former CEO of the Oakland Raiders, was tweeting about her support for him. And so a lot of people do understand. The kid made a mistake, okay? And the best way to learn, as you know, as you go through life, because the three of us are, we're up there in age.
I'm very young. I'm very young still. Very young.
Well, you made a mistake of betting against the Saints, so now you're paying for it.
That's why I have a bag. I have a bag of hair on the set still, because Jeff is a freakazoid and kept it.
You learn not to make that bet until at least mid-season.
Right, exactly.
But you learn through mistakes, and I think everybody understands that. And the outpouring of support from high-profile celebrities,
We got a Larry Jones in Idaho.
CEOs, the general public, the fact that there's a billboard in New Orleans saying that the Saints still, the fans still love Marcus Williams, that says a lot. The kid is 21, and I say kid because he's only 21. He'll learn from this. He's got the natural talent. He's a stud. He's going to learn from this.
Herbie, moving our focus a little bit toward next year, and I know you alluded to it earlier, and Larry's got a column up today on NOLA.com about it. What do you think when Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton sit down and compile their to-do list, where do you think it starts for next season?
Drew Brees. It has to start with Drew Brees. This team believes that they do have a championship-caliber team, and in order to have a championship-caliber team, you got to have the quarterback. People can point to the Eagles. They're in the playoffs with Nick Foles, but they didn't get there without Carson Wentz. You have to have Drew Brees back under the fold. He's got to be at the top of their priority list. The good news is he wants to come back. He's mentioned it since the offseason, and he reinforced it Sunday, and he reinforced it yesterday. He wants to be in New Orleans. That's got to be at the top of the priority list. And then when you shift gears into the draft, I think they got to look for a tight end. I don't know if Coby Fleener's going to come back. He's still under contract, but the concussions that he has suffered throughout his career, it's got to be in his mind, I would think. So you got to start looking at positions that you need to bolster from the past season. I think a linebacker, another linebacker probably makes sense in the draft as well.
Herbie Teope, covering the Saints for NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. Herbie, if there's, say, a free agent, and you kind of compiled the free agents, if there's a guy you think is going to walk on his own terms among those that are unrestricted free agents, who do you think might walk on their own terms?
If we're talking, are you talking about the Saints?
Yes.
This is going to be an interesting offseason right now for Senio Kelemete. I know he wants to be a starter in the league, and I know the Saints covet his versatility, but this guy wants to be a starter. And I think if money gets thrown at him, he's got something to consider there. Kenny Vaccaro, too. Do the Saints want him back? That's the other big thing. And I think Vaccaro's probably going to command a nice contract on the open market. But I think when you think about the free agents that the Saints have who could potentially sign with other teams, you got to put those two at the top of the list.
Yeah, I was going to say that would not surprise me at all. From talking to some of the offensive linemen on the Saints, they feel like Senio Kelemete could start for 80% of the teams in the league. Don't you think he's going to get starter money?
I think he will. Because of his body of work, this Saints offensive line the past season, where would they be without Senio Kelemete, especially when you think about the rash of injuries they suffered at the early part of the season? The guy can play right tackle. He can play left tackle. He can play both guard spots, and if you need a center, he can be a center in a pinch. Versatility among offensive linemen around the league is highly coveted, and if the Saints allow him to walk, I think he's going to get a pretty decent contract out there because he wants to be a starter. And you're absolutely correct, Jeff, because even Teron Armstead told me yesterday Kelemete is a starter in the league. So you got to think he's going to explore his options.
Herbie Teope covers the Saints for the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com. Herbie, appreciate the time as always. Stay warm and go get you some of that Game of Thrones Wobble Wobble Wednesday. Look it up on the internet. You can find it. It'll be your new song that you whistle nonstop. I know you will.
The North remembers, my friend. The North remembers.
The North has come south, and we're in trouble. Hey, Herbie, appreciate it, my friend. Talk to you soon.
No problem.
All right, that's Herbie Teope. Let's take a break right here on the show. When we get back, we will hear from Thomas Morstead, also hear from Will Lutz. Let's hear some of their comments about what happened in the game, what happened going forward. And, Jeff, you got a cool column that you wrote on Thomas Morstead. We'll touch on that, too, in the next couple segments. Promise you in the 11 o'clock hour, we'll be talking Pelicans. We'll have Will Guillory on. You'll hear from Anthony Davis, Alvin Gentry. Big-time win against the Celtics on the road, and they take on the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta tonight. So pretty significant stretch. Winning 3 in a row. Could they make it 4 in a row? So we'll talk about all that coming up next here. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
Yeah, I'm trying to update it. So now it's 26,000. Oh my God! I mean, it was 12,000 a while ago. I don't know if it's made a big contribution.
That Larry in Idaho hung up.
Oh, okay. I mean, we're in an interview. I'm like, I'm not
Sorry, Larry.
canning it. Sorry, Larry in Idaho. You can call back if you hear
Keep
it.
listening for your chance to win Pels tickets on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Yeah, so
You're
is
the
it
kinda guy I
basically
wanna
that
hang out
Vikings
with.
fans
Hey,
are just
thanks.
thought he
I
was
was,
gutty?
being
Yeah.
sarcastic?
Yeah, I was just reading all the comments.
On
They
your
all
favorite
love that he
station.
came
All
out.
free.
Oh, that's what they love.
iHeartRadio.
They love
All
that,
your
like, they
favorite
thought the
music.
Saints were,
Tyler
off the
from
field,
Theory of the Dead Man.
and then here's the one
This is
guy
Jared from 30 Seconds
with the
to Mars.
injury,
This
and he's the
is
first one out.
iHeartRadio.
So Morstead was saying yesterday,
And
I
iHeartRadio
was just
is
because I
all
was
your
the one
favorite
lingering around on the
stations,
field
thousands of
because I wasn't some
radio
hero.
stations from across
Because
the
I was like,
country.
but
Plus,
he's like,
iHeartRadio
they need 11
is
players.
free. Download the app
They only had 8.
today. All
And
your
he,
favorite
I
music,
thought
all your favorite
Cam Jordan was
stations,
one of the more
all
interesting
free.
guys of all people. Cam Jordan.
Yeah, but
Cam
Have you
Jordan
ever
like
worked at a place where they didn't
blasted
want you
his
talking
guy.
about your salary?
Yeah, you watch
Actually,
the replay of
have
it. He
you
like
ever worked
engages
anywhere
him.
where they
Everybody
did?
else is just standing
Unlikely.
there.
But don't you have a right to know? If only there were a simple solution. Well, now there is.
How we find jobs has changed. On Indeed.com, our company reviews give you the inside track on thousands of companies. You can research salaries, benefits, company culture.
Hey, I got all that audio.
Okay. Search for greatness.
I mean, I
Search
would see
Indeed,
Cam
the world's
Jordan
#1 job site. Indeed is the world's #1 job
knows
site
he's
according to
just
ComScore
gotta
total
suck
visits.
it up and be,
Jazz is more
do
than
it.
music. Gumbo is more
Yeah.
than soup. And the
Yeah, he
new
understood.
Armstrong
I mean, that's what
International
Morstead was
is
saying. Like,
more
look,
than
we got it.
inevitable. From
gotta finish
touchdown
the
to
game.
takeoff, it will be a destination in its own right. The new Armstrong International Airport, where New Orleans takes flight, arriving 2019.
A woman in San Jose, California is dead just days after being diagnosed with the flu.
From the time I took her to the hospital to the time she passed was about 18 hours.
Jim Collins says he couldn't believe how quickly his girlfriend Katie Thomas died because of how healthy she was. Collins is swearing not to take the flu lightly anymore. Veterinarians are issuing warnings about canine influenza after an outbreak in the San Francisco Bay
is this, a
Area. Beth
fear
Brookhauser
alert
is with the
update?
Society for Prevention of Cruelty
How much
to
are we gonna,
Animals.
much time are we going to have coming out of this break?
Coughing, lethargy, loss.
What'd you say?
How much time are we going to have coming out of this break?
We'll have about 10 minutes, about 8.5 minutes almost.
All right, we're going to split this up. We're going to do Lutz
Okay.
this segment, Morstead the next, because it's like 7 or 8 minutes of sound. It seems.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the Morstead.
The Morstead audio is about 2 minutes apiece almost.
Yeah, we'll do
Sport Talk
Morstead
and
top of the
Daycare.
hour because Jeff
Top
has a
update,
column,
Sarah
a cool
Lee
story
Kessler,
about all the Vikings
NBC
fans giving
News
money
Radio.
to charity.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Wonder if Marrero's hanging today. I had a friend of mine when I was a kid who thought this song, they would say, cruising down the street with the bleepers, fellas be yelling, the railroad. Like, no, dude,
What?
it's Marrero. Sorry, dude.
I have no
Marrero.
You are actually a little more varied in your musical.
No, I'm not. Dude, he
knowledge
just
than
knows on Wobble Wobble Wednesday, he plays like a certain genre of like from 1990 to like 1996, and it's like New Orleans rap and stuff. And that's
all the Cash Money, right?
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. I don't know.
You don't know.
I really don't know. Like, we need the Ice Cream Man or something, Master P. I don't know. I don't know. I
think
wasn't really that
I think
cool
we
as a
need more
kid.
Manic Monday just to kind of carry over from from the Saints game on Sunday. I
still think it's not like you're getting over the hump Wednesday. It's basically you're just running slam into it, and you're still thinking about the Saints loss. I mean, that's just kind of what it is. But look, who would have been the hero? Will Lutz. He would have been the hero. We all looked at it, and I don't think there was really a doubt in your mind. I don't think there was a doubt in my mind that he would just drill that kick, and he nailed it, like right down the center. He would have been the hero.
He grooved it.
He would have been the new
doubter.
Garrett Hartley.
Yes, I know. And so I had a chance to talk with him yesterday about it, and a little bit about not only the field goal itself, but his thought process and mindset leading up to the field goal on the sidelines. And through my binoculars in the press box, I was able to kind of focus in on him as the Saints were moving into position for that game-winning field goal, and saw him actually go out on the field. Sean Payton call him over, and Sean Payton had this conversation with him, much like he did with Garrett Hartley before the NFC Championship game in 2009, 2010. And you could see Will Lutz put his arm around Sean Payton, almost like consoling him, or at least. So I asked him about it yesterday. It was an interesting interview.
Yeah, let's hear what Will Lutz had to say about his conversation between him and Sean Payton before the go-ahead, well, at one point, go-ahead field goal.
Sean, he's a very situational guy.
Yeah.
I think, every important kick we've had, he's just kind of gone through the situation with me, and it's fine with me. He just kind of called me over like he always does, and he said, hey, they only got one timeout. They're not going to use it on you. Hit your ball. I said, hey, Sean, we're going to go win the game. Be back in a second.
Still over? You over yet?
And he said, all right, I know you will. And that's kind of it. He just kind of always wants to put his last word in, and he wants me to know going in that I'm not going to be thinking about being ice. So I didn't even think about it. Of course, I thought about them having a timeout, but I guess I didn't look at it like that. I don't understand the whole situational part of it. Where are they going to use that timeout now or after? So I guess it was actually kind of good to know that they're probably not going to use it on me. So, but yeah, it had to. I know he's mic'd up in games.
Right.
So I kind of knew that when I said that to him, hoping that it would be a, one for the books. But unfortunately, it went the other way.
Will Lutz was ready for the star moment, being cool and calm.
I thought it was funny because he was thinking about being on NFL films for
He's
history.
thinking about being on NFL films, and he's just figuring, I'm going to drill this kick. I like it. Hell, I like the confidence. Are you kidding me?
He
Come
talked
on.
a lot about keeping his heart rate down, and that's something we used to hear Greg Williams talk about. You want players that can keep a flat heart rate, which is easier said than done, and this kid seems like he can do it.
Yeah, let's hear what Will Lutz had to say on what he was doing on the sidelines before the kick and about his routine right before the kick.
So, my natural routine is once we cross the 50, every first down, I'll hit a kick, and when we start getting into that, getting into field goal range, I'll hit one every down. So that biggest thing for me is I want to feel that contact, in a timely manner. You don't want to be standing around for 2 or 3 minutes without feeling the ball on your foot. So, I'd say I kick a good amount during the games, but it also kind of helps me keep my mind off the game. In that situation, the hardest thing for any human is keep your heart rate low. You try not to think about score. I usually don't even look at the score during the game, but obviously I knew what the situation was. So, I love kicking, and kicking keeps my heart rate down. So it's one of those things that I just kind of kept kicking to the net to keep my mind off the crowd and the emotion of the game.
Let's hear what Will Lutz had to say on the kick itself and if he knew it was going to be good.
Yeah, it's a smooth operation. Props to Zach and Thomas. Zach's a first-year guy, so I've been in his shoes, and it's no easier to snap in a pressure situation than to kick. And he threw it down. Thomas got it down quick, and I looked at the picture of the protection, and there was nobody near. And in a situation like that, that D line is going to bring the house, and our O line was spot on with protection. And they were all year, so. It was probably one of the better operations we've had all year, and you can't say that very often in a situation like that, so it was good.
Jeff, I think we just made it worse for people just now.
Why is that?
Will Lutz thought he'd be the hero, cool as a cucumber, drilled the kick. We just made it worse for people. Don't be in your car and listen to that. Don't do it.
I think it should give people encouragement that the next time they get in that position, they've got a kicker that they can count on. And, that hadn't always been the case here in New Orleans.
What? Are you kidding me? They couldn't rely on kickers for some time here? What?
I thought both kickers were clutch.
I was waiting for Forbath to choke because I've seen him miss kicks in practice. He can't even make kicks consistently in practice. I've seen him goob them in games.
But he drilled that big one.
But he drilled them.
And I think that played a little bit, again, we're overanalyzing everything now, but I think the fact that Forbath drilled that one before had the Saints defense more worried about them getting to at least the 40 and being able to win the game. They were thinking about that. There's no doubt in my mind that, and Larry, the play before the now infamous whiff 6, I don't know what the Saints were doing. They were in that crazy defense where they had Robertson roaming around behind the defensive line, and it left Wright wide open down the middle of the field. I mean, he was wide open. Case Keenum didn't see him and forced it over to the sidelines. And I know the Saints were defending the sidelines, but they would have had time. There were 14 seconds left when they snapped the ball. Wright catches it. He's going to get down to at least the 35, somewhere between the 40 and 35, I think, before he gets tackled. They would have had time to run up and take spike the ball and get a field goal off. That defense they were in before that was just as egregious as the one at the end.
Like I said, we're not making things better here. We thought we were going to be therapy on Monday. We thought we'd be cool on Tuesday. We're making things worse. Making things worse, Jeff. Will Lutz should have been the hero. You're saying they could have blown it somewhere else. We're making things worse.
Yeah, and or he could have gotten out of bounds, as you and I noted the other day, and they still would have had a field goal attempt, even if he doesn't score the touchdown. So,
well, let's hear from Thomas Morstead on his reaction from the loss and his advice for Marcus Williams, and your column on, again, Minnesota people being very friendly and opening their arms. Amazing story with Thomas Morstead. So we'll talk about that coming up next, top of the hour. Come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Duncan Holder.
I know. I 26,000.
You count on your air conditioning to work perfectly and to make your family comfortable. So if you ever have a problem, you want someone who will be there to help right away. At Burkhardt Air Conditioning and Heating, that's the commitment we've made to our customers for over 25 years. Our NATE certified technicians provide emergency service for any type and any brand of cooling system. If you need help anytime, call us. We promise to get you up and running again quickly and professionally. And if you're thinking about an upgrade, right now, we'll help you save with quality cooling equipment from Amana. These systems come with incredible warranties, and we have 5 years interest-free financing available now. Plus, our Amana brand HVAC systems are highly efficient. With Burkhardt's 25% energy reduction guarantee, you'll continue saving on utility bills for years to come. Whether it's an emergency repair or a brand new cooling system, we're here to help when you need us. Trust Burkhardt Air Conditioning and Heating. Visit acpromise.com.
WODT WNOE FM HD2 New Orleans. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app. Search Sports 1280. Fox Sports trending now.
No major coaching hirings thus far today anyway. The Titans are interviewing Rams offensive coordinator Matt LaFleur for their head coaching vacancy. The Cardinals continue to search, but Steelers O-line coach Mike Munchak has reportedly turned down the chance for a second head coaching interview with Arizona. Seahawks officially announced the hiring of Ken Norton Jr. as defensive coordinator and Brian Schottenheimer as the team's offensive coordinator. Some college football news. Washington State quarterback Tyler Helinski has died at just 21 years old. He was expected to be the Cougars' starting quarterback next season. And Florida Atlantic and coach Lane Kiffin have hired 24-year-old Charlie Weiss Jr. as the Owls' new offensive coordinator. Notre Dame coach Brian Kelly has dismissed 4 players from the Irish team, including receiver Kevin Stepherson, who was the third leading receiver for the Irish this past season. I'm Deb Carson.
Attention all women who have been diagnosed with ovarian cancer. In February 2016, Johnson & Johnson baby powder was ordered to pay $72 million by a jury jury to women who died of ovarian cancer after 35 years of using the talcum baby powder product. Multiple studies show women who have long-term use of baby powder products with talcum for feminine hygiene can increase the risk of contracting ovarian cancer. If you or a family member has been diagnosed with ovarian cancer and used Johnson & Johnson or Shower to Shower baby powder prior to the diagnosis, call Talcum Baby Powder Helpline today. 800-457-3280. You may be entitled to substantial compensation. The consultation is free, and you'll pay nothing unless there is a recovery in your favor. If you or a loved one used talcum baby powder-based products before being diagnosed with or died from ovarian cancer, call Talcum Baby Powder Helpline today. 800-457-3280. 800-457-3280. 800-457-3280.
All right, 3 minutes.
An Italian restaurant serving the best fried chicken in town. Fresh Louisiana seafood as well as delicious Italian dishes. Try our daily chef specials or an overstuffed po' boy. Open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. till 9 p.m. with 2 locations to serve you. In Bucktown at 1001 Live Oak between Bonneville and Lake Avenue, or in Kenner at 910 West Esplanade at Chateau Boulevard. Let Mr. Ed's cater your next event. Mr. Ed's Seafood and Italian Restaurant. 2 great locations, 1 great menu. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House, now open in the quarter 7 days a week at 512 Bienville.
For game-changing innovation, look to the Latrim family of companies located in Harahan. Intralox, a Latrim company, changed the game when they invented modular plastic conveyor belts over 40 years ago. These belts and innovative Intralox technology are transforming movement in manufacturing facilities around the world. Intralox is a dynamic global company now hiring in production, warehousing, shipping, and more. If you want to be part of our successful team, visit Latrim.com. That's LAITRAM.com.
With the U.S. unemployment rate at a 17-year low, employers are having a harder time finding enough workers, so they're giving the workers they have more hours. Labor Department stats show the average work week among private employers hit 34.5 hours in both November and December. That's only a 10% higher than it was over the 4 previous months, but it's back to where it was during most of 2014 and 2015.
Clean yourself up,
and
dude.
overtime hours are up too, which is fattening paychecks, even though wages themselves are still growing slowly. McDonald's is trying to be greener. Lisa Carter explains.
McDonald's claims that by 2025, 100% of its stores will have packaging from renewable, recycled, or certified sources. It also aims to be able to have recycled trash cans available at all stores. A spokeswoman acknowledges the recycling.
Hey, so a caller wanted to know if anybody's interviewed Dennis Allen since the game.
With local
we'll never get to see that guy.
Oh, really?
Maybe at the Pro Bowl we can get someone to get him.
Low on all the cash you need right now.
Oh yeah,
to
so
book
we've
an
got
advanced vacation stay and don't want to use credit.
ESPN's in our office today.
Airbnb will now let you reserve
doing a story
accommodations
for
by paying
NFL
just
Sunday
half up
Countdown
front.
on
will be due shortly before you arrive. The feature is called Pay Less
papers,
Up Front.
like from the
It's
Minneapolis
a way
Star
for those
Tribune
on
and
a
the Times
budget
Picayune
to
from the
lock in their
headlines
rental.
and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Mavericks owner Mark Cuban says the team will begin accepting ticket payments with Bitcoin next season. Cuban tweeted in June that
If they
Bitcoin
try to
was in a
interview
bubble,
me or
but he
Jeff,
later
we're gonna
ended
look
up
like
investing in the
hobos.
cryptocurrency in late
I didn't even
2017.
shave.
Some
Me
people
neither.
wanna buy
I got like a
some crypto
goatee
to
going.
Bitcoin, and we're happy to make it easy for them. And a big
All right, 30 seconds.
Swiss food giant Nestle plans.
What time's Guillory?
Oh, 11:30.
Giant Ferrero for $2.8 billion. The maker of famous candy bars, including Baby Ruth, Butterfinger, and Crunch, announced
Baby Ruth
products. Industry analysts say the deal will
There you go.
Of course, man.
be in the U.S.
I think
Consumer
even
and
Jeff
Business
knows
News,
that.
Joe McConnell, NBC News Radio.
Hey, you guys.
Dunc and Holder, hour number 2 on a Wobble Wobble Wednesday, January 17th. Be safe out there. I'm sure if you're walking the streets, you're wobbling because you're slipping on ice. If you're in your car, you're slipping around, sliding around. Be careful doing anything other than staying in your house today. But Jeff and I, brave enough souls to venture here to our NOLA.com Tom Speaking Studios. I was brave enough to go over the Crescent City Connection. You probably took your pogo stick and hopped over here from uptown, so we made it here safe and sound.
Yes, and there's not very many people out on the roads wisely choosing to stay home. This almost feels like a snow day. When I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, we'd get out. It was the greatest thing in the world when it snowed because you get out of school, of course. And that's what it feels like today here. Are schools in session today?
All of my kids are off school. I think every school in the area is shut
Seems like
down.
everything was closed down.
Well, I will tell you what's not shut down is tonight, Tulane men's basketball gets back on the court tonight. They take on Houston, Uptown, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip right here on the flagship station for all things Tulane's men's basketball here on Sports 1280. Again, I was going to try to touch on it later on the show, and I know as the days move on, we're going to dive into college basketball because I think there's some interest locally, so we're going to keep up with that. I know Jeff's a big college basketball guru, so we'll do that. But, yeah, don't forget, 7 o'clock tip. It's going to happen tonight. Uptown at Tulane against Houston, 6:30 pregame, of course, with the voice, Todd Graffinini. He will be joining the broadcast and making it happen. So, Jeff, you wrote a column, and it's another reason why I don't care if you're angry at the Vikings. I don't care if you hate Minneapolis. The damn Minnesota folks, they're just too nice. That's becoming a major problem for anyone who wants to hate anything that happened. They're becoming too nice, and Thomas Morstead has become the real poster child of Minnesota folks embracing someone they don't need to, basically the enemy, and they're embracing him. Jeff, why don't you tell his story here?
Yeah, he's become the patron saint of Vikings fans. And this story has just kind of organically grown into something quite amazing, I think. So we all know what happened in the game on Sunday. Thomas Morstead did not break his ribs. He, as originally reported, he suffered what I think technically or medically would be termed bruised ribs or strained ribs. He tore cartilage in the rib cage on his side, making that tackle on the very opening punt of the game. And he was in a lot of pain. If you've ever hurt your ribs, you can't even hardly breathe. And so he sucked it up. We saw his second punt after the injury only went 38 yards. He was comparing it to electrocuting himself. And he sucked it up, finished the game out, and I think earned a lot of respect, not only from the Vikings fans, but I think anybody watching the game, certainly his teammates. He was lauded by Joe Buck and Troy Aikman during the game. And interestingly, one of the things that impressed most of the Vikings fans was the fact that Morstead was one of the 8 players that came out from the locker room, the post-game locker room, amid that chaotic scene on the field where Vikings players are conducting media interviews, players had their pads off. Basically, the game appeared to be over, but officials had to conduct the extra point play because that's the rules, and so they had to drag players out of the locker room. And Morstead was the first Saints player that came onto the field amid all this chaos to conduct the extra point, even though he's not on, obviously, the extra point team. And because of that, Vikings fans on the Reddit site, there's a subreddit site for Vikings fans, they made a post saying how impressed they were about Morstead and citing his valor in the game. And that turned into some of the fans going to Thomas Morstead's foundation, which is whatyougivewillgrow.org. And they went on there and started making some donations, small donations, $10, $25 donations to his charity to show their appreciation and support for his cause and for him in general as a player. That swelled. All of a sudden, the director of Thomas Morstead's website, his foundation, Dennis LaMonica, said by that night, 24 hours later, on Monday night, they had about $2,000 in donations, almost all from the Minnesota area. Last night, it was up to around $8,000, and I just checked it now. It's over $31,000, almost all of it from Minnesota, to Thomas Morstead's website. Because they've been giving this money to Morstead's foundation, Thomas feels like they need to contribute that money back into the Minnesota community. So instead of it going to the New Orleans area charities, they're going to donate it back to the Children's Hospital of Minneapolis, so that money can go to treat the children up in Minneapolis. But it's a great story. It's just a good example of like good things happening to good people. We know Thomas Morstead. We've covered him for a long time. He's one of the true like good guys on the Saints team, and has always been involved with Steve Gleason's charity. I think was heavily influenced by Steve early on in his career, and has kind of taken Steve's lead in giving back to the community. And so it's nice to see him being recognized not only for his work on the field but off the field, and does kind of turned into a real feel-good story.
And Thomas is true New Orleanian. He does like the Irish Channel parades. He does all this stuff. He's true New Orleanian, like totally true and true.
And what Dennis told me, he told me an anecdote about Sunday night that I relayed in the story, that when the team got back, the flight out of Minneapolis got delayed. They were supposed to get in around 11:20, I think, or 11:30. It got delayed out of Minneapolis. They didn't get in till 1 a.m. out in Kenner at Atlantic Aviation, and there were still scores of fans out there braving the cold weather to meet the Saints charter as it arrived. And Morstead was so moved by that he stopped his car, got out of his car, personally thanked fans, posed for photos with them, and here he is, got basically fractured ribs, in a ton of pain, and had to be dog tired. They're flying back at 1 a.m. It's been a long day, emotionally drained, but yet he took the time to greet the fans and to express his appreciation for them. And that just speaks volumes. That says all you need to know about Thomas Morstead, because that's exactly the kind of guy he is.
No doubt about it. But, of course, look, you mentioned all that, and you could tell just by the way he spoke yesterday in the locker room with his comments about the loss and about Marcus Williams. It's going to be hard, even through all this goodness, to kind of get through this thing. So let's hear what Thomas Morstead had to say on his reaction to the sudden nature of the loss against Minnesota.
It was unbelievable. I know that word gets thrown out a lot. Unbelievable. You couldn't believe it was happening. A few guys were congratulating each other on the sideline with 18 seconds left. Don't touch me yet. I've been part of some bad beats, and sure enough, it happened. Just tough. It's tough. I'm certain. A little bad for my guy Marcus after the game. He's the type of person we want on this team. He's got a lot of plays for us this year. I'm really proud of him for.
Definitely a step up from last year. Every year he tries to take a step up.
Originally, it didn't look like he was going to talk to the media. I'm proud of him. I learned from John Carney a long time ago. You got to come in here and face music, and you got to be in charge of what you put out there and how you want to be perceived after the most difficult time. And because he's going to be part of a lot of success here. He's going to be a part of a lot of big plays, and if you're going to take the good, if you're going to bask in the glory, you got to take the bad and the negative, and he did. And I'm really proud of him. I know nobody on this team doesn't want him as a teammate, and that I'm proud of him for handling that, how he did. He's a 21-year-old kid.
How big of a kick that was.
And it was devastating to him. And I know what that feels like. I missed the last extra point of my high school career to tie the game in the playoffs, take State 5A high school. And I didn't think I was going to play in college. So, when your whole city, everybody you know that you grew up with, you blew it, I know what that feels like. And it doesn't matter if it's high school, college, or pro. To you, it feels the same. And I'm just proud of him how he handled it. And like I said, he's going to be better for it, and I know everybody on this team loves him, and I'm just proud of him for doing it.
And Jeff, we talked a little bit about it yesterday, how the perception of Marcus Williams, and I knew we would continue to talk about him because it's just such a kind of a mind-altering, season-altering, franchise-altering play. It's just what it is. I knew we'd keep talking about him, and it's people like, oh, media this, media that. The fact that he stood up, spoke, you could see it in his eyes. You could look in his eyes, you could hear the tone in his voice, and that resonates with football diehards here in New Orleans. And basically, it's not like this community and football is not like other cities with their football team. I mean, people want to embrace their players. Even though Marcus made the play, screwed it up, you call it the whip six, people are going to call it other things, whatever. The fact that he owned up to it, lived up to it, and that's why people, the vast majority of the reaction is that people want to pick this kid up. And I think that's perfect for New Orleans and the way we are here.
Well, I think that was very sage advice by Thomas Morstead, advising him to speak to the media. That's what a veteran player does. It was very smart of him to encourage him to meet the media and understanding that you have to be accountable. And his comment there about learning from John Carney, I know that John Carney, I interviewed him after he missed the extra point after the River City relay. And when we walked in the locker room, John Carney was standing at his locker waiting on us. And he spoke at length. He did not leave the site until everybody had their questions. And that's what a pro does. That's part of being a professional, too. I mean, look, I understand that he didn't have to do that, but I think you kind of do. I'm probably on the wrong side of that, but in my opinion, that's exactly what you should do. So I have a hard time praising him over it because even though I think it was good he did it, I don't think I would be more critical of him if he didn't do it instead of praising him for doing it, because I think it's part of what you do as a professional. I guess I give him a little more leeway because he's 21 years old and a rookie. But that's the veteran players on the team talking to him and saying, this is what you got to do. You got to face the music. You can't be there in the spotlight when you make the game-winning interception and then bail when you blow the play. That's not how the game works, and that's not how life works. So I was impressed at the fact that the leadership of the team kind of rallied around him.
Well, and he doesn't have to take that advice. He could do what he wants, because this happens where I'm sure someone could say, hey, go live up to it, go own it, and people would be like, no, I'm not dealing with it. And they could walk away, and he wouldn't be in the locker room yesterday, and you wouldn't hear from him for months. And it would linger and linger and linger.
But that would be really bad optics, and it would be a completely different narrative.
Absolutely.
Now.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
I think people in the media, I understand where you're coming from, because there's a point I would come from, I would agree with you. Part of being a professional is fulfilling media obligations. That is part of the job description. In the NFL, just say during the week, you're required to speak, be available to speak. After games, if you're not injured, you're typically, I'm not saying required because you're not necessarily required. People turn down interviews all the time. And it's not like, let's give, for example, Marcus Colston. Did we ever really crush him for not speaking to the media? I don't think I ever just went out and said, oh, this guy's a bad guy, this, that, and the other. It wasn't his thing. He didn't do it regularly. And still, even after the fact, he doesn't do it regularly. He jokes still, oh, I'm running away from you guys still, even though, you have a good relationship with him. I have a good relationship with him. But to be in that moment, I've seen so many times where, I'll even just give her an example. Marcus Colston, remember when caught the pass, divisional game, he could have stepped out of bounds. Instead, he chucked it across the field.
About Seattle.
In Seattle.
Yeah, I remember he did not talk.
And he did not speak. You know who did? Mark Ingram spoke after that, and that's when he fumbled, and that's when the tide kind of changed. But I do think, though, in this instance, it would have been a miracle if the Saints would have pulled that off. So as far as Marcus Colston, but in this instance, they could have easily just shielded him, put him in a corner, and covered him up. But the fact that he came out and did it, and heeded veteran advice, because you could, like I said, you could be a young player, you don't have to heed their advice. But I think it was twofold. It was good that the Saints veterans did that, and it was smart and good for Marcus Williams to heed the advice, do it, and be. Look, he was heartfelt, and he wasn't just like, I missed the play. Like, he was heartfelt.
Yeah, he was honest.
Yeah, he didn't say, I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Go through the motions, right. And look, you're exactly right. And I can tell you, I remember, I was looking it up while you were talking, Martin Gramatica, the Saints kicker, in 2008, missed a field goal. He missed a 43-yarder with 1:55 seconds left. We were in Denver, and Denver won that game 34-32. If he makes the field goal, puts them up by 1 with less than 2 minutes left, he bailed on the media. He would not talk. I distinctly remember him. Not only did he bail, but, I mean, he saw us coming in and kind of ran, basically escaped the locker room. And I lost all respect for him at that point. I mean, he's a veteran player, too. It wasn't like he was a young 21-year-old rookie. Face the music. I mean, no one's going to sit. Everybody understands it. The reporters aren't there gloating in your misery or your failure.
No.
They just want to hear the story, what happened. It's part of the responsibilities of being a professional athlete. The spotlight does not turn off when things go bad. Unfortunately, it's always on.
And the way that this was handled, the narrative will go on that people in this community will embrace him as opposed to, make him this evil enemy because of the way it was all handled. And so we'll go forward. The pain of the play will resume, but the aftermath, I think people will rally around them. And look, we don't root for bad stories. We like that. Honestly, I like that that's the way it's going to turn out. So that's good. So let's take a break right here on the show. We get back, turn our page to Pelicans in about 10 or 15 minutes or so. We'll talk with Will Guillory covering Pelicans. Pelicans coming off of a huge win at Boston. So come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app for Dunc and Holder.
I didn't even give what advice would he give Marcus Williams? Oh, well, we're not going to play that cut.
Yeah, you don't have to do it. Right. We've spent enough time
on it. No. I didn't think we would, dive in again, but I just got on a roll.
Yeah, no, it's compelling. Yeah. I don't know about this.
Nope. Here's the thing. You and me are going to be able to deal with it. Fine.
Right. I'm not worried about that.
No one else will. No one else.
Well, Ron will be, I think.
Well, yeah, but no one else will.
Lost the audio feed. Here we go. Here we go.
Just check the plug. Unplug it and plug it back in.
Always something, Larry. The bane of my existence.
Probably it might have flipped on the...
Paid Wendy's for a limited time. Offer not valid in Alaska and Hawaii.
Another monster performance from Anthony Davis carries the Pelicans to a 1-16.
All right, I think we're
On Martin Luther King Day, a sad night in Boston. Word came out about the passing of NBA Hall of Famer and Celtics legend JoJo White Tuesday at the age of 71 from cancer. Elsewhere in the association, Magic stunned the T-Wolves 108-102. Nuggets nipped the Mavs 105.
All right, 30 seconds.
118-111 winners over the Suns.
We'll just go this segment. I know we ran long the first one. We'll just keep this one
on Sunday, the
5 or
AFC
6 minutes
Championship.
and then go to commercial.
Okay.
Reportedly okay following a minor car crash.
And you know what? We'll play a lot of these because they're shorter. Let's play the Pelicans audio.
All right.
He was found dead Tuesday afternoon of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. That's sports. Jay Corwin, NBC News Radio.
What's that, man?
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
They got me bouncing with this one here.
Dave, I can officially say I don't know this song. So Jeff, this one's over my head. Too young for my old man underwear, I guess.
It's definitely Wobble Wobble.
Oh, I know this part. Okay, I'm wobbling a little bit. There we go. I'm not that cool, Dave. You're cooler than all of us. I don't know if he wants to admit that publicly, but That might not make him actually that cool. But anyway, you know who's cool? Pelicans. They're real cool. Coming off a hot win last night, beating the Boston Celtics on the road in overtime. Jeff, I know you watched the game. I'll be honest, I didn't. I'm just going to tell you right now. I was following it on Twitter because I was going to put it on if they would have maintained the lead. Then I saw that they slipped the lead. I said, oh, forget it. I'm going to do some other things. And then all of a sudden they win, and I'm back. Should I be back on board? Should I be back on board?
Well,
I'm
look,
afraid. I'm afraid to be back on board. Now they're 3 games over 500. I can't remember the last time they've even been that high over 500. Early in the season, were they that much over? I don't even know.
No, I don't think so. I think you can make an argument that's the best win in the regular season this franchise has had, and I mean, I don't know. At least in the Alvin Gentry era.
Definitely an Alvin Gentry era. I would say the biggest regular season win would have been when they clinched the playoffs and beat the Spurs in the final game of the year.
That's
under
good.
Monty.
Yeah, Monty was crying.
Yeah, that was good. I would say that would be.
But this was
in the Gentry era, no question.
I had no faith that they were going to pull that thing out, and they played good defense. They out-executed Boston and got every big play they made, and they played very good defense. There was no choking at all. And they've choked in the past in those situations, not executed well. And they didn't, let's face it, they did not execute the last 10 seconds of regulation well. That was kind of classic Pelicans, fumbled around, end up DeMarcus Cousins to throw up a fadeaway 3 with a guy right on him. There was a no prayer shot. But once overtime got there, they out-executed Boston.
Yeah, and of course, remember all those rumors that Boston's calling for Anthony Davis? You think they're going to be calling now? 48 points, 17 boards. Let's see. He followed that from his 45.16 rebound performance in Madison Square Garden. I think the Boston Celtics might want to just throw their whole team and try to get Anthony Davis. I think they're going to keep calling. I don't think those calls are going anywhere.
Wasn't there? I have to look it up. There's some kind of stat about that, the back-to-back 40-point nights.
Yes, Wilt Chamberlain and Anthony Davis, and this is according to Elias. So the only players in NBA history to have a 45 and 15 game in each of back-to-back road wins. Chamberlain did that 3 times in the 1961-62 season and in December of 1967. It's the second time in Davis's pro career that he had consecutive games with at least 45 points and 15 or more rebounds. He also did that in the first 2 games of the 16-17 season, but New Orleans lost each of those games on its home court. We hear these stats lines, hear them from Boogie, hear them from Anthony Davis, and at least now you're getting them in wins. Look, because some of that, they lost both of those games. Anthony Davis was awesome, but they lost both of those games.
Yeah, that's such a difficult place to play, too. I mean, the Garden is, that's as tough as it gets. And Boston have been playing so well. And I was just most impressed with the efficiency of New Orleans offense. They were shooting well over 50% into the third quarter. And that's difficult to do against Boston, such a good defensive team. And they really had no answer for Anthony Davis. I mean, they tried numerous guys on him, different matchups, and he was scoring from all over the floor in many different ways. He was going to the boards. They were getting offensive rebounds like they usually do not do. Those are effort plays, obviously. And I thought running the court, I mean, they put it all together in that game. Now, we've seen this flash of what their potential can be. Can they sustain it? I think that is where the veteran teams in this league, like Golden State, San Antonio, that's where they separate themselves from the Pelicans, because over the course of an 82-game season, if you don't bring it every week, you end up as a 5th or 6th seed, and that's been the problem with the Pelicans up to this point.
The Pelicans are going back-to-back. They're at Atlanta tonight, and Atlanta's the worst team in the East. So they played the best team in the East. Let's see how they handle coming back-to-back with the worst team in the East. Look, Anthony Davis went 16 of 34, 45 points. Drew Holiday, 23 points, went 9 of 16 from the field. Boogie Cousins struggled, 7 of 20 from the floor, had 15 boards, 7 turnovers. Jeff, I know you love that stat on Boogie. had 19 points, but big contribution. Look, they only went 8 deep. Big contribution from Ian Clark, 15 points. And
yes, Ian Clark, that's a great point. He had been kind of buried in the rotation. He was MIA, Willie Snead-like, and now he's kind of resurrected himself, and he's back. Whatever trust he lost, he's earned it back, and now he's become a key player. And he gives them another outside shooting threat, which is critical. And Darius Miller also has become a guy they lean on. I mean, he was out there in clutch defending those really good wings for Boston, doing a very good job. So this team's kind of coming around.
All right, so I lied to Dave. Dave knows I always lie to him, always. You'll hear from Alvin Gentry and Anthony Davis in our final segment, but next segment, we'll talk with our own Will Guillory about the Pelicans' big win. What can we expect? The tone of the conversation with Will changes every week. It's kind of amazing. It is a wobble always with Will, and so we'll wobble with him.
Will's always so upbeat.
Exactly. Even when he's down on him, he's still upbeat.
He's bubbly. Ebullient.
Exactly. So let's talk with Will coming up next.
Effervescent.
Exactly. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app, your Dunc and Holder. Voice is dying.
Your forecast on...
It's Big Word Wednesday.
I like that. There's a bar, champagne bar down on Rampart called Effervescent.
Channel 4.
Nice.
Right most of the day, we're going to stay at or below freezing.
Oh, next door to WWL. Yeah, I think they used to be an old WWL studio. That's what they took over.
Anything that certainly
does the owner was telling me. I think they sunk like $2.5 million into this place. It's like really nice. I'm like, are you going to hang?
17 to 18
I think the guy's got so much money.
23 to 24 south. All precautions
His wife
needed.
wanted to
Pipes,
open
plants and pets.
the place.
Also, the wind chill
They moved
advisory
back from the North
continues.
Shore.
Wind chills anywhere from 8 to 15 degrees above zero. So take it easy out there and use that.
But I go in there
from the Fox 8 Weather Center. I'm
you go in there and I don't know anything about champagne. They got all these different kinds of champagne. I'm like, I have no idea what to order.
All I know is by the price. I'm like, that's crap. That one, if it's $20, I'm like, that's
we
got
got Will in 1 minute.
Okay.
But
That's all I know.
I mean, the menu, I know so much more about wine than champagne. I just have to get the bartender.
You need to charge the phone.
Urge to speak up and call Crime Stoppers at 822-1111 or download our free Tip Submit app.
Are you going to break it? You're going to chew it up?
$2,500 cash reward.
Mine's already
Take a
bent.
stand. Speak up with Crime Stoppers.
I'm Dave Marley, president of Marley Drug. Are you taking Viagra? Now you can get sildenafil, the active ingredient in Viagra, in generic 20 milligrams for $2 per tablet. That's a savings of $50 per dose.
Oh, no.
Marley Drug is a North Carolina pharmacy delivering generic
They're playing probably their best basketball a few.
You know what impressed me last night, Will, was not only their energy, but their defensive execution. I thought they really made it difficult for Boston to score, especially in clutch times. So you can see the potential is there with this team. When they're focused the way they were last night, this team has the ability to play really good defense. It's just sometimes I think their attention or focus wanes on that end of the floor.
Being back in Boston came out with a lot of energy. He kind of took on the responsibility of guarding Kyrie and really went at him. And in the second half, they kind of shifted that responsibility over to Drew Holiday, and he did a great job as well. And I think that one of the main issues with the team, obviously you brought it up, was the energy level. They kind of go up and down with their energy, but I think also is defending the perimeter and kind of holding down some of these teams that want to create so many of these open three-point looks, having two big guys that kind of, hover towards the paint at times. They end up leaving teams open on the perimeter. But they were really locked in last night. The Celtics did make a whole bunch of threes last night, but they attempted like 50, I want to say. So just forcing Kyrie to just take tough shots the entire night. I think Drew Holiday did a great job down the stretch. And if they can keep that kind of focus and kind of energy, we already see what type of team they could be on offense. So if you could just put up an average effort on defense, and this got to be one of the better teams in the Western Conference.
Will Guillory covers the Pelicans for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. Will, Ian Clark, I know he was an offseason signing coming from Golden State. You figured he would be kind of a key guy coming off the bench. Wasn't probably that way throughout much of the season, but recently he certainly elevated his play. What have you seen from him, and what's kind of been maybe the thought process and philosophy of trying to get him in the game and get him to be one of these better bench players for the team?
Yeah, when he came over this offseason, he was kind of known as just another one of those three-point snipers that came from Golden State, another the guy that can come in and give you a few buckets off the bench. But what Alvin Gentry has really complimented him about as of lately, kind of giving him a lot of responsibility down the stretch of these games, is because of just the effort he brings on both ends of the court. He's a guy that kind of flies all around the court. He knows how to cut. He knows how to cut. He knows how to around in this offense and get himself in the open space, which is really important playing alongside AD and DeMarcus, where sometimes that spacing can get a little crunched, and you need guys that know how to move around in the court and get themselves in the open spots. And I think, Ian has done a really good job of that, and he's playing with a lot of effort on defense. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's down there getting big rebounds last night. He can kind of defend multiple positions. And just having a guy with Rondo, having his passing and kind of that just IQ on the court is really important. But at the end of the games where, the majority of the shots are going to go through Anthony and DeMarcus, it seems like Gentry just wants to have more guards on the perimeter that can kind of knock down those shots when they come their way, and that's not necessarily Rondo's strength. So as of late, their closing game with the two big guys, E'Twaun Moore, Drew Holiday, and Ian Clark, and they've kind of found success with that lineup just because they're moving the ball really well. They're playing with activity on defense, and Ian is kind of bringing that unselfish mindset to everybody, and it's allowing Drew, Anthony, and DeMarcus to kind of have the ball at the end of the games, and they can take over rather than looking to Rondo to kind of create those shots where teams are kind of sagging off of him, or they're sending more help towards AD and DeMarcus, where now the ball's originally in those guys' hands, and now you're going to have to worry about those shooters around them.
Okay, Will, here we go again. Here we are. They're 3 wins in a row. They've got the Hawks tonight. You would think that would be a win unless they have a major letdown. Then they come back home for what looked to be a couple of winnable games against the Grizzlies and Bulls, back on the road against the Hornets, another winnable game. Then they come back and have a big homestand against the Rockets, Clippers, and Kings. Is this team have the potential to turn the corner? Are we seeing this team turning the corner? I'm hesitant to even say it, but it feels like what we saw last night represented something more than just one night out of 82. I felt like that was maybe a threshold moment for this team.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way you do. I'm really hesitant to kind of go all in on this team and say, all right, they finally had their moment. They've arrived now. Just because we've seen so many times they'll play great and then they'll come out and they'll just be down by 15 points in the first quarter. But I think what really has to encourage you if you're a Pelicans fan is kind of the way Anthony Davis has kind of taken the reins of this team and kind of taken over that number one role, where I think as DeMarcus has been here, he's such a great player and such a big personality. I think at times it's kind of there's a gray area between, who's really the leader of this team between AD and DeMarcus. And I think after these two games and the way AD has kind of played through these past few weeks, I think it's kind of that moment where it was kind of the way I've kind of compared it is the way that first year in Miami with LeBron and Dwayne Wade, where it was kind of, hey, we're both the co-captains of this team, and they had to kind of figure out after a while that, hey, maybe it's smarter for us to kind of let LeBron be the leader and everybody else fall into place. And I think it looks like the Pelicans are headed that way, where they're saying, okay, AD's the leader, everybody else is kind of falling to their role. And I think that's what they need in order to take that next step as a team. But the question is, just like what you said all year, how long can they keep this up? Obviously, we can't expect AD to drop 45 every night, but can he maintain that effort every night if they expect him to play 40 minutes? Can we expect DeMarcus to continue playing smart, taking care of the ball, and not, worry about his shots? Can we expect Drew Holiday to continue making shots the way he has? Only time will tell, but you have to be happy with the way everything's kind of coming together at this point.
Yeah, look, Anthony Davis took 34 shots last night, played 45 minutes, and Cousins and Drew Holiday combined took 36 shots. And Anthony Davis made as many shots, 16, as those two did combined. How do you feel like, if that's the way it's going, how do you feel like Boogie is going to handle that?
Yeah, I think that's the really interesting part of this. I think anytime you talk to DeMarcus, the first thing he tells you is that he wants to win. He's never been on a playoff team. He's never been on the team that's had a winning record this deep into the season. So I think he's just happy just to be around this type of environment right now. But I do think he wants to be a contributor. He wants to be a big part of the team, and he knows he can add a lot to the team. But I think at this point, just the overall efficiency that Anthony plays with, it's hard to say that he shouldn't be the guy taking the most shots. He shouldn't be the guy that the offense should be running through. So at this point, obviously, DeMarcus is still going to have his issues with turnovers. He's still going to have his issues with fouls at times. He's going to get into it with the refs. But I think for this team to really take that next step, it has to be not Anthony taking 34 shots, but he has to be the focal point of the offense. Everything has to run through him. And then at that point, when you're getting one-on-one matchups with DeMarcus Cousins like they got last night, there were a couple of times where DeMarcus would catch it on the block, and then the Celtics would just say, hey, we'll let him score because we don't want Anthony to score. And DeMarcus is looking like, okay, if you want me to score, then I'll just go score. And that's something he never had in Sacramento. So if they can kind of get that going where teams will leave him open to kind of stop Anthony, then you got to pick your poison at that point.
And, Will, where I did see some progress out of Cousins last night was he was willing to go down. His three shot wasn't falling. He was willing to go down on the block and do that dirty work. We all know he's a beast in the paint. I mean, he is almost impossible to defend down there, but sometimes I think he doesn't want to get in there and do all that dirty work. He wants to drift around the perimeter, the new age game that we play in the NBA. But last night he did. He was down there against some tough, as Trump would say, bad hombres, and Horford and Baines, and he was scoring. He was very effective, and what that does is it opens up everything else for the offense. All of a sudden, Boston trying to collapse down there on him, and it frees up some of the wing shooters, and also it frees up AD to go to the offensive glass on the weak side where he's so effective. So I was really impressed with that. I think we may be seeing more of that in the future, him down inside where he can really, I think, do some damage.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of twofold because obviously when teams are when Anthony's kind of putting up the amazing numbers he's putting up, you can't really double DeMarcus down in the post, and I think that's part of his concern with going down to the post as often as people kind of want him to, is that a lot of times he'll catch it down to the post and teams are doubling him. Teams are getting physical. They're kind of pushing him around. Not pushing him around because obviously he's a huge guy, but they're kind of getting physical with him down in the paint, and I think it's kind of it's more difficult for defenses to kind of attack him the way they do in the post when he's out on the perimeter, and he kind of gets those big guys on the island. They have to move their feet to stay in front of him. When he's down in the post, you can send 2-3 people his way and kind of force the ball out of his hands. And I think also a part of that is that AD's kind of scoring more on the block. And we've known Anthony as kind of a jump shooter, kind of a finesse big. But as of late, he's getting down there in the paint, and teams are having a lot of trouble stopping him. He had 8 offensive rebounds last night, one short of tying his career high, which shows you that he's at the rim on almost every possession, and the Celtics didn't really have an answer to kind of push him out of there. And when he's down in the paint, it's kind of smart for everybody else just to stand around on the perimeter and kind of give him the space he needs to operate. So I think obviously you want DeMarcus down in the paint. That's where he's most effective. But I think they're doing a pretty good job of finding that balance to make sure that those guys get their touches in the paint, but also giving them the space that they need to operate down there so they can get shots.
Will Guillory covers the Pelicans for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Hey, Will, appreciate it as always. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm jumping on. I'm not even waiting for the game tonight. I'm going to roll the dice, assume they're going to beat the bottom-feeding Hawks. I'm back in. Let's go. Let's get crazy. Give me a Pierre Pelican head or a King Cake Baby head. I'll put it on right now. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Jump on the bandwagon. Just make sure we stay off these icy roads. I hope we're doing something to figure that out. But let's all jump on the bandwagon.
Larry might be shaving some other part of his body very soon with his bold proclamation.
I'm not making any proclamation. I'm just jumping on the bandwagon. I'm just assuming that if I fall and crack my head, I don't have any hair to cover up the wound anymore. So, hey, Will.
Yeah, there's no cushion now.
Exactly.
So I don't know what you're gonna do.
Will, great job as always.
Thanks,
appreciate
Will.
the insight. Great stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys.
All right, Will Guillory. Great job doing here at the Times-Picayune, NOLA.com, covering the Pelicans. One more segment here. You'll hear from Alvin Gentry, and you'll hear from Anthony Davis, their thoughts after the win and how this may affect them going forward. So come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Dunc and Holder.
Cold, freezing, hard cash. Money in your hot little hand. You could win $1,000 in your hand. Be listening every hour, weekdays from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Sports 1280.
Yeah, when I plugged in
Americans
the charger,
are always on the move. They're in the car or at the office or working around the house. Americans refuse to sit still. So how do you connect with all those moving targets?
Went off.
Easy.
Nobody
with
can get
radio.
the mic back on.
Radio reaches 93% of Americans every week. More than Google, Facebook.
You hate TiVo?
Because, hey, who has time to sit and watch TV?
Oh, Tebow. I thought you said you hate TiVo.
Well, Tebow's the one who started all this kneeling nonsense. It's his fault.
And put AM/FM radio to work for your company.
Did he first kneel on TiVo?
Maybe.
Boys and girls ages 11 through 15
kneel on the
for the 2018. But
I'm confused
at the Covington
now.
City Hall Recreation Department at 317 North Jefferson Avenue, Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30
I mean, Dave is
p.m.
all
Registration
over
fees are only
our airwaves.
$55.
I hear his
That's boys
voice on
and
every
girls ages 11
station,
through 15 for the
everywhere.
2018 basketball
iHeart,
season. For more
everywhere.
information, call 985. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm sneaky. I'm in charge of PSA, so I get to put my commercials on all 8 stations whenever I want.
What happened to the seductive Corey Johnson
yet in
commercials?
2018.
I want to hear those again.
He's slacking.
This is where everything you love.
Well, yeah, it's something that it's pissed me off since he's been here. He's too lazy to send automated, updated commercials and lists like that, so they don't get put in the system because he's just lazy.
And Kanye West welcoming.
Aggravates the hell out of me. Of course, he's probably listening on YouTube. He's gonna crucify me.
TMZ reporting a surrogate gave birth to a 7-pound baby. Kardashian saying she's grateful to that surrogate who made their dreams come true with the greatest gift one could give. The couple has 2 other children.
Fat Harry's.
Fat Harry's.
That's what it
Walking
looks like.
to Fat Harry's and they're there. You're like,
Ed
what?
Sheeran's Perfect,
That's
sitting on the
definitely
throne
Fat
of both the
Harry's.
Billboard Pop Songs and Adult Pop Songs charts. The last song to
What would the
post its
kids
first
call
week
it?
at
Lit?
number 1 on both. And the
So is
same
that-
week was Justin
when would they go,
Timberlake's
last
Can't
night
Stop
to
the Feeling
Commanders?
in June 2016.
OJ like
Probably went out
Jay-Z's
afterwards.
444 tour, now the highest-grossing
What the hell
solo
else
trek
is this
despite
shit?
low ticket sales. The tour has brought in nearly $50 million across 32 shows.
He's like, I'm
beating out
getting paid.
Jay-Z's Magna Carta tour by 21%. Tickets for it were reportedly priced as low as $6 on StubHub, so more fans could attend the shows at an affordable price, which resulted in a gross of 7 figures per night. The Beatles' animated film Yellow Submarine
I just
is
hope it
headed
gets
back to
done quick
theaters
so
for
it
the
doesn't drag
50th
on.
anniversary of the film's original release. The announcement only mentioned the UK and Ireland for a July 8th showing and a glorious surround sound. The film was originally released on July 18th, 1968, and had its world premiere in London's Piccadilly Circus the night before, with all 4 Beatles in attendance. That's entertainment. Jennifer Pulsoni, NBC News Radio.
Coming back.
Get down, girl, go ahead, get down. Dunc and Holder now. Eric Asher next at noon on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
One more segment here on Dunc and Holder. You missed any of it. Sports1280.com, NOLA.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube page. You can catch all of the shows in its entirety. Let's hear from Alvin Gentry. And Jeff, his comments right after the game, first question about the win were pretty significant to me in the way he answered. Jeff, why don't you listen and let's dissect what Alvin Gentry had to say on the win at Boston.
Well, it was just a good basketball game between two good teams, I thought. You know, I thought we did a great job defensively in the first half, trying to contain Kyrie. You know that that's not going to last the entire game, that at some stage he's going to try to take over the game, and he did. But I thought we hung in, and, you know, really, I mean, AD was terrific. I thought, you know, DeMarcus did a good job. You know, I thought Ian Clark probably played his best game for us. And then Drew was, you know, down the stretch, Drew was great. So, you know, we came up with stops when we absolutely had to, and then we were able to make some plays down the stretch that was the difference in the game.
Never mind, I lied to you. That was the wrong clip the way I wanted you to dissect.
Liar.
That was a lie. Here's the clip. On closing out a win, this one is interesting, kind of his philosophy after the win. So here's Gentry on closing out the win.
Well, it's big in the sense that it's a road win and we beat a really good team. You know, doesn't mean anything. We still got 40 games or 39 games to go. So in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean anything except you get a road win against a good team.
It doesn't mean anything. It's only that you got a road win against a good team. I don't buy that at all. I think it's a huge win. I know, but
I like that.
He could say that out loud publicly, but I think that's total nonsense. I think it's huge. It could propel the team.
Well, confidence-wise, it's got to be a huge boost. But I like that they're not getting overly excited about it because that's what's crippled this team in the past. The rise and fall week to week, day to day. I like that he's staying more even keel. Let him stay even keel. The players in the locker room need to get the confidence.
I guess that's a difference from the one game I covered this year where they acted like they had beaten the Golden State Warriors and they lost, and I thought it was like Bizarro World that they were like thrilled that they almost beat Golden State. So
right.
I think this is actually far better the attitude after this game. Let's hear what Alvin Gentry had to say on another historical performance by one Anthony Davis.
Well, you know, and I don't know, I think they did a good job on him, but I also, you know, he had played a long stretch of minutes, and I think that he was fatigued more than anything. And, you know, we were trying to find a way to get him a few minutes rest, but, you know, it just wasn't there to be able to do. But, you know, when we needed him most and when we needed Drew most, I think they came through, and that's the big thing. You know, we beat a really good team, and you know, especially defensively. At the end of games, it's really, really hard to score against this team. They're so good defensively, individually, and from a team standpoint that you know, they do a lot of good things defensively, and we were still able to come up with some big plays. Especially Drew. I thought Drew really down the stretch did a great job of kind of taking over the game, and really he was the one that kind of brought us home.
Let's hear Alvin Gentry a little more elaboration on Drew Holiday's performance.
I think he's been playing pretty consistent, you know, really, you know, the last...
Got 4 minutes.
Yep.
You know, he's had some blips on the radar screen there, but for the most part, he's been really, really solid and done a really good job for us.
Let's hear Anthony Davis on the win up in Boston.
I can't find it.
Well, let's not hear Anthony Davis.
We didn't want to hear that anyway.
Let me derail this Pelicans talk just real quick.
What?
I want to make one quick point because I forgot to bring this up yesterday.
I don't know where this is
I don't know
go.
if we talked about this. This came out of the locker room yesterday about Drew Brees and the fact that I don't know if people know. I think they know Thomas Morstead sent it out on Instagram, but Drew Brees, of all the wonderful things people have said about him over the years, things he's done, he paid for a charter flight on his own dime for 30 Saints wives and children, family members, flew them up on his own dime to Minneapolis for the Vikings game. They were all talking about it. I think there's a Saints Wives social media site, and they were all discussing how expensive it was, as we found out, to go to Minnesota.
Okay,
and Breeze found out about that they were all having trouble getting it together, and he chartered a flight on his own dime, did it without any publicity, but Thomas Morstead wanted it to get out and put it on Instagram. So just another story about that's great leadership. It's just one of the small things Breeze does that engenders trust and also causes people to follow him. Anyway, I had to get that out there. Sorry.
I had to get that off my chest. How about Anthony Davis on the win? Let's get that off our chest.
It was a great win for us. They tested us. We were up. Came back, made a run. Guys made shots. Jaylen Brown.
We got 2 minutes left.
Those guys made plays, and in overtime, we just wanted to keep battling, keep fighting. We knew it was going to be a tough game for us. These guys, best team in the league. So, to come in here on their home floor and get a win, definitely did a lot for our confidence, and just try to go out tomorrow and get another one.
Alvin Gentry mentioned Drew Holiday in overtime. Let's hear what AD had to say on the guards' play in overtime.
Yeah, coach set up this play where we just kept running the sideline pick and roll, and he was just making reads. They kept worrying about me so much, diving to the rim, and Drew was just able to, hit them little mid-range jumpers. They just kind of took over that overtime for us, and we got some separation for us, and we were able to come down and get some foul hits. He had a great defensive play on Kyrie, and we just got the rebound, just try to make free throws after that. But let's say it was a big-time win for us.
One more here, Anthony Davis on the bench play from Ian Clark.
He's been playing well.
1 minute.
New York, and then of course playing here, he played well. So we're gonna continue to need this. He's coming off the bench with a spark, making plays, making shots, talking defensively. So anytime he's in the game, he's just trying to help us win, and he's been doing that as of late.
All right, that's going to wrap up today's show, Jeff. Pelicans, I'm sure we'll be talking about tomorrow's game. You could hear that game, of course, on our sister station, 99.5 FM WRNO. And let's see if they can beat the worst team in the East after beating the best team in the East.
If they don't, we'll be back off the bandwagon. But everybody be safe out there. Take your time on the roads.
No doubt about it. Coming up next, Eric Asher. And we'll be doing his TV show tomorrow night, so catch that as well. But we'll be back tomorrow here on a Thursday. So appreciate everything. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Duncan Holder.
The average time.
All right, Dave, thanks for the hustle, buddy.
Yeah,
thanks,
see you,
buddy.
Mom.
All right, see you.
All right.
And most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
Open calendar. What's my schedule looking like?
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an emergency flash flood between Park and First Street.
What? No, that doesn't work. I'm busy then. Decline. Decline.